1960s, known as the Swingin' 60s, by Adam Adawan, Jerry Special, and Zisui Wang. The Cuban Missile Crisis began on October 6, 1962. The Kennedy administration decided to invade Cuba and overthrow Cuban dictator Fidel Castro. The Russian government had sent nuclear missiles to Cuba. Because of fear of nuclear war, America prepared itself for any possible nuclear attacks. Kennedy election. Kennedy was elected president on January 20th, 1961 at the age of 43. He was the youngest man ever elected president and the first president born in the 20th century. He promised that the United States would put a man on the moon before the end of the decade and embrace the civil rights movement. He kept his promise. The Beatles. The Beatles were a famous British rock and roll band in the 60s. The Beatles are often cited as the most influential rock group of all time. John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr wrote and recorded many songs during their brief time as a group before becoming solo artists. They have lots of famous songs such as Strawberry Fields Forever and A Day in the Life. Vietnam War. South Vietnam government was corrupt and considered communist. In 1961, President Kennedy sent troops, weapons, and supplies to overthrow the communist regime and restore South Vietnam to a democracy government. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King is one of the most influential and most looked up to human beings of all time, and all too many. He's done what people can never dream of doing nowadays. He brought African Americans to have equality in America. Dr. King led the African American struggle to achieve full rights of a U.S. citizen. First Super Bowl. The very first Super Bowl pitted the Green Bay Packers of the NFL against the AFL's Kansas City Chiefs. The match wasn't nearly as close as anticipated, as the Packers, led by famous coach Vince Lombardi, for whom today championship trophy is named, ended up being the Chiefs 35-10. Though ticket prices were low, the attendance was sparse, with less than 60,000 fans watching at the enormous Los Angeles Coliseum. Kennedy's assassination. Kennedy's assassination on November 22nd, 1963. President Kennedy was assassinated while riding in an open limousine in Dallas, Texas. The event was traumatic for Americans, partly because the first family had become so much a part of their lives through television and the media. Television stations covered Kennedy's funeral live, which turned into a period of national mourning. Many Americans felt that a unique era of youth, excitement, and promise had been destroyed before it began. Malcolm X, born May 19, 1925, was important in shaping a black Muslim and black power movement that changed the nonviolent struggle for American equality, followed by Dr. King's civil rights movement. Malcolm X was released from prison in 1952, and he was committed to the Nation of Islam, and he took the name Malcolm X. By the 1960s, Malcolm's position of leadership came in conflict with Elijah Muhammad and some of the other leaders. Apollo. Apollo was known as the first Americans to go into the space. The flight was known as Apollo. After Sputnik was lifted off, America decided it was time to go into space as well, which is known as the space race. America and Russia competed on who was more successful, and the winner was America. The Rolling Stones, another famous British rock band in the 1960s. The Rolling Stones brought anglicized blues to the British invasion. The following were Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, bassist, ex-saxophonist Mick Taylor, and future Kinks drummer Mick Avery, soon replaced by Tony Chapman. Robert Rushsinger and Jasper Johns. Robert Rushsinger and Jasper Johns emerged as the two most important neo-dadaists in the United States. Rauschenberg developed combine or assemblage painting. This approach included using three-dimensional objects. Jasper Johns produced his most famous images, Flag and Target, throughout his entire career. Black Panther Group. Elaine Brown is the political activist who during the 1970s became the leader of the militant group known as the Black Panther Party. This group was made for self-defense also. The group was ranked among the more militant in the counterculture and fighting for the Black Power movement and socialist programs.